What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today, we're going to be talking about the frenzy changes to RTA because these changes are quite significant and will change the way that RTA plays in the future. So in this video, we'll discuss these significant changes and then we'll see what units are positively and negatively affected by these changes. So hopefully after this video, you get a better idea of how the future RTA season will be so you can start preparing both units and teams and just getting into that mental mindset of what to expect in just 10 days. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server, link down in the description. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So as you guys can see, I've been doing a lot of fighting in this preseason. And I know it doesn't mean a lot since it's preseason, but it has gotten me a chance to experiment with the new RTA changes and kind of see where the meta is migrating to. So the previous season was all about big tanks. Tanks were everywhere and full tank teams, right? You could put 4 knights and then 1 support or something and you would most likely win the fight, right? Because tanks were just that powerful. But with these new changes, games are going to be moving a lot faster, and while tanks are still a very strong strategy, there's other strategies like control and aggro that are going to be so much better in this upcoming RTA season, and hopefully this helps you guys start thinking in that direction. And I've been loving it. So now let's get into the actual changes themselves. So first, how the video will play out. We'll discuss these changes. How are they significant? What does it change? Kind of some teams that get messed up by this and some teams that get benefited from this. And then we'll see the units that benefit from this as well as units that lose value because of these changes, one in particular, and give you some examples so you can start thinking, okay, this makes a little bit more sense, and it will help out a lot more when the next season comes. All right, now on to the changes. So this was in a previous patch. It was a while ago, but man, the changes are very significant and not a lot of people are talking about it. So what were they? So let's talk about how RTA was before and then how the changes are now, because it is quite different. So first, how was it before? So if you guys didn't know what Frenzy was and RTA, you don't play a lot of real-time arena, what RTA is and Frenzy is, essentially Frenzy, the longer the fight goes, you start doing more damage and you start healing less and you lose more health. Now, this mechanic was meant to make games not last a very long time, because if you could, sustain units would be just insane, since they would just be able to out-sustain your opponent and it would just be 50 million years, right? So what they did was they made an increased damage, and the longer the fights went, the more damage you did. On the thing that happened though, and what people started abusing, is that because this was a straight damage increase, you could still pick very heavy tank units like Crow, like ML Crow, like Von Cecilia, like Rollo Light, and because it's just a straight damage increase, those tanks would be doing considerably more damage as Frenzy went on, and the decreased max health and the decreased healing didn't really start becoming much of a threat till much later, and those true damage hero, even units like ML Haste, were kind of dominating the meta. Near the end of the RTA Season 2, we were seeing teams of ML Crawl, A Tywin, ML Haste, Rello Light, and Lilius, and no damage dealers, killing diversity, making games go to like Frenzy 7+, and that was just the safest style, because you would just win in Frenzy 7, because your true damage would just kill any unit in the game. So it was not a healthy environment. Fights would take a very long time, and it was just not a good look, right? And it was primarily because of this damage increase. What they decided to do to try to make games faster, and it really has made games faster. I can't remember the last time I went past Frenzy 5 because of these changes. And before, you would see way faster games. Even the tournament that we just hosted, even double tank teams, it was like moving way faster because of these changes. So what did they do, and how did this hurt tanks in particular? So what they did is they made, instead of a damage increase, they made an attack percent increase. So why was this significant? If you want an example, think of an ML Haste. Let's say your ML Haste does 10k damage with Portrait of the Saviors. I know that damage may sound really high, but let's just say hypothetically that you could do 10k damage with ML Haste. In the old system, by Frenzy 4, that ML Haste would do an extra 40% damage. So that ML Haste, instead of doing 10k, would be doing 14k damage. That's a lot. That's going to kill almost any unit in this game, both squishy or tank or bruiser. But now, with the attack percent increase, units like ML Hay and even units like Crawl that have HP scaling, even ML Crawl, had their power curtailed because they don't have that good of attack ratios. So this 50% increased attack to ML Haste will make his 10k dunk more like 11k. So he's losing out on 3k damage that he used to be doing. So these true damage knights like Crow, like ML Crow, like ML Haste, even units like A Tywin are not going to be doing as much damage as they were because of the attack increase. On the other side, more aggressive units can now get faster scaling, particularly bruisers, because bruisers do have attack scaling and can directly benefit from this. And by Frenzy 6, it's a 40% attack increase from the damage. You're just going to be doing a lot more damage. As long as you have a damage ratio of more than 1 on your skills, you're doing way more damage with this new change if you have attack scaling ratios. So this highly benefited DPS units and units such as some bruisers. And the other thing with the attack increase is that benefit helps those damage dealers more than the tanks, making the whole meta more aggressive. So though that change alone has made the meta way less tanky because there's not as many tanks. So now you're starting to see cleave become a more dominant strategy because it's so aggressive, or even just hyper aggressive teams with Cerise, Falconeer Clury, Rylet, RB, and just super aggressive, no damage mitigation. You're just coming in, doing damage, winning the game. So units like T-Surin have become so much better. The other side of the coin that they also added to make games a lot faster and also help the playstyle of control is this increased effectiveness that also hurts tanks. Why? A lot of tanks like Rello Light relied on high effect resistance to not be controlled down and be allowed to do their scaling. Well, in the new system, the effectiveness increase, this highly benefits units that don't necessarily want too much effectiveness. Think someone like Fallen Cecilia. Fallen Cecilia has a really good provoke on S1. And typically you can get her to 60%. 60% is never going to be hitting a Rollo Light at 180. But now, by Frenzy 4, your FCC has a very real chance to provoke down a Ruel, which is huge. And then when you look at units like a Tywin that are typically around 100 to 140 effectiveness, at Frenzy 3, they're landing consistently on Rollo Light. So units like Rollo Light and Montmorency are not as powerful anymore, and effect resistance took a massive hit. So overall, tanks can actually be controlled a lot easier. So this helps control a lot. And we'll see another unit that also is a DPS that benefits from both of these. And a lot of DPSs actually fall into that category. The other thing is that the decrease max health happens a lot earlier and scales a lot faster, as well as the healing, making tank teams a lot worse since they can't hold on till later in the game. If they're not able to hit the backline, they are going to lose. So again, massive changes that really hurt tanks. While tanks are still really strong, I still see tank teams every once in a while, but I can way more reliably deal with them than I could before. And then we're seeing a lot more control and bruiser control styles, and even just straight up aggro comps become way more popular. So those are the changes in a nutshell. So now, what units benefit from this and what units this is a detriment? I've kind of been touching around, and I will be making follow-up videos to this idea with the top 5s and just overall as we get closer, units should start building. But let's talk about right now what units benefited the most, because this will help you understand what units are super OP. I'm not going to go to over all of them. This is just a few to give you an idea. The biggest one that I personally use a lot is going to be Ravi. She benefits from both the increased effectiveness and increased attack. Why? She already has insane attack scaling with this skill that gives her an extra 75% attack percentage. When you add on top the attack percent increase from Frenzy, she's scaling so much harder into the game. She is a late game tank buster. She will destroy tanks like they are nothing. She is just absolutely disgusting. And the effectiveness change, she already got 50% from her passive, but now in Frenzy, if you get to Frenzy 5 and you get that extra 70% effectiveness, she now has 130% effectiveness. That's a chance to hit every unit in this game. That is absolutely crushing because you don't even have that much. This is no effectiveness. Just a regular Robbie, by the time she gets her stacks, has a 50%, and then a Frenzy 5 has an extra 70%. That's 120 effectiveness. That's going to land on almost every unit in the game. Effect resistance is actually almost useless, right? So massive buff for Ravi. She's just doing so much more damage than she was before because the straight damage increase wasn't scaling as hard with her attack. So very, very powerful there. Another unit that benefited greatly, and this unit I actually think is going to be one of the best damage dealers in the upcoming season, Tempest freaking Surin. She already didn't care about the percent decrease the percent decrease in max health. It actually benefits her that she drops health faster because now she can just heal easier. So even though you're losing some of the healing, the faster reduction in HP makes it so she heals her HP faster. So in a way, it doesn't really affect her at all. But what it does is the effectiveness change. This skill's on a 3-turn cooldown. And the buffs, the debuffs that this applies are insane. And you can get 60% effectiveness on your T-Surin pretty easily. Now, late game, she can land this on tanks. It's just filthy. It's disgusting. She can also land the bleeds on the S1, allowing her to do more damage. T-Surin is one of the units that benefited the most from this change because just the attack percentage increase as well as the effectiveness increase have made her so much better. And then the last damage dealer that I want to talk about in this section is going to be someone like Spectre Tenebria. Spectre Tenebria is now just not okay. It's just insane what this unit can do. Because again, she already had attack percentage scaling within her kit. This multiplied and added onto with the new increased attack rather than damage. Late game Spectre Tenebria, it's just GG. You might as well just quit. I've seen this Spectre Tenebria do 14k on a single attack on my Falconeer Clury through Aureus Adamant Shield in the late game. It is absolutely insane how much damage this unit can do now in the late game if she gets her passive with the new changes in RTA, as well as she benefits because she more easily lands the poison and the stuns, making her just an insane threat, and she's just absolutely bonkers right now. Even though she already was, she's got more stronger. But now on the other side, on the tank side, tanks also got a buff, Ambitious Tywin being a big one. Why? The effectiveness. A Tywin can now be built a lot tankier, and with this S3 late game, it's just like nothing can resist this. A Momo is not safe, Rello Light's not safe, no unit is safe. A Tywin, one of the best units right now, again, because of the effectiveness increased change. Another unit that just scaled way harder. Fallen Cecilia, same thing. She doesn't really care too much for the decrease in healing, because, I mean, this barrier doesn't really care. This barrier is just based on the health, right? And it's just, like, gonna happen regardless. But she really does benefit because of the effectiveness with this provoke, allowing you to land them more reliably on knights such as Crow and on units such as Rather Light, right? So those units, big buffs, big nerfs. So these are units that really lost an edge in this current meta. I could honestly say almost all supports, but particularly Royal of Light. A unit that used to be highly coveted within the pick order. People used to pick Royal of Light as early as they could because she just fits so well into tank teams and allow you to go Soleil into the Frenzy. She's not that good anymore. You rarely ever see her. Why? She's much easier to lock down with the increased effectiveness in the Frenzy changes, and with the reduced healing being faster, these S2 and S3 are not healing as much, so she's not as hard to deal with. She honestly becomes an early game protector. After you get past Frenzy 3, which is in 24 turns, she already loses so much value. She's not as powerful, she's more easier to lock down. So Royal Light taking a massive hit with the new updates. And most healers are all this way, Emo Haste being another one. While Emo Haste is still extremely good at countering Arbiter Vildred, the damage reduction now scaling off of attack makes this skill not be as scary. Before, this used to be something that like, oh man, we're Frenzy 3, GG, someone's going down. Someone's dying. And you get back to full health. Not as scary anymore. The damage S1, not as scary anymore, right? Because it's not a damage increase anymore. It's just an attack percent increase, and the ratios for attack to damage are not that high for Emo Haste. So Emo Haste taking a big hit with not being able to do the high decrease penetration. This also does bring me to units like Crow and Emo Crow. These two units are still amazing. Don't get me wrong. Crow is still super powerful, but the S3 can't just horse down any unit in this game when he's at 50%. You have to be a lot smarter with your horse now. You can't just horse a unit when you're at 60% and then you'll just kill because Crow Frenzy is just disgusting. No, you actually have to manage your horse a lot easier, and the damage does drop a lot more. And on the other side, units like Last Rider Crow, this S3, still amazing opener. Still super good for aggressive teams, but you can't put it in a tank team anymore, because if you put it in a tank team against another Bruiser team, he does nothing for 6 turns, and when you do this again, the damage doesn't increase as much anymore. Because you no longer get that straight damage increase in RTA, it's an attack percent increase, and this doesn't scale that hard with attack, right? So again, another unit that got big hurt, and then as well as Dark Orbit. So any unit that had HP scaling is going to be hit some way, and any unit that didn't want to get locked down is not going to be locked down a lot easier. So that should hopefully give you guys an idea of what is going to happen. So to kind of summarize these points, essentially units that got buffed are units that scaled off of attack, such as Ravi, Stannis, Spectre T, and units that want the extra effectiveness, like a Tywin against Spectre T, or even units like Alencia, right? They get that small buff. So that just overall makes the game more aggressive. On the other hand, though, the units that lost some power are units that relied on effect resistance and units that needed that extra damage increase, that had true damage scaling, that may not have us, or any unit that's scaled off of health rather than attack, right? Because units that don't scale off of attack are so much worse now because they're not getting that damage increase that they were before. So that's kind of the summary. So where will the meta go from here? So what the title was tank teams are dying. And it is true. Full tank teams are not as strong anymore. You can't stack 4 tanks, 4 knights, and expect to get the same result you were getting the previous season. Aggressive units such as Landy, aggressive units such as Kise, even units like Vivian are much more powerful now because they don't have to fear as many knights. So with knights being weaker, bruisers being stronger, we are seeing more bruisers, which means we see more cleave, which means we're seeing more aggressive teams. So overall, we are rotating to a meta that actually is better for aggressive teams. Now, this does not mean that tank teams are dead, and I need to repeat that over and over again. I still see tank teams do very good. It's just they are less oppressive, and units like Relo Light are no longer core to their team. They had to adapt to the new changes and utilize things like T-Surin and Spectre T and actually put some DPS heroes, or they will lose to units like Ravi and even units like Alencia now with the new RTA changes. So hopefully this gives you a better idea on the Frenzy changes and prepares you for the following season. The next season will be starting in 10 days, and there will be so many more videos in RTA because I believe these changes are amazing. And I am having so much fun because the diversity of teams is immense. Cleaving, control, tank, bruiser, they are all balanced again, which I think is just amazing. And I'm looking forward to the start of the new season. But that's all I have for you guys today. I will see y'all next time.